Welcome back. The echoes of the day are beginning to fade, replaced by the gentle pulse of the night. Close your eyes and let the rhythm of this ancient story carry you into a deep, effortless rest. Chapter 1. The Palace Gates Under Moonlight. You walk toward the ancient gates as night settles over the stone. The air holds the coolness of countless evenings, carrying with it the faint scent of worn marble and sleeping gardens. Your footsteps echo softly against the weathered pathway, each sound absorbed by the silence that has grown comfortable in this place. The gates stand before you, tall and patient. They have welcomed no visitors for many seasons now, yet they remain open, as if expecting someone like you to arrive when the world grows quiet. The iron has darkened with age, and vines trace delicate patterns across the metalwork, their leaves whispering secrets to the gentle breeze. Moonlight spills through the entrance, painting everything in silver and shadow. You pause here, feeling the threshold beneath your feet, stone worn smooth by the passage of those who came before. The warmth of the day has faded from these surfaces, leaving them cool against the night air. You step through the gateway and into the first courtyard. The space opens around you like a cupped palm, enclosed by walls that rise into darkness. The ground beneath your feet is paved with stones that catch the moon's glow, each one fitting perfectly against its neighbor. Somewhere, water moves slowly through hidden channels, the sound barely audible but constant, like a heartbeat. The courtyard breathes with you. As you walk deeper into its embrace, your eyes adjust to the interplay of light and shadow. Columns stand in measured intervals along the perimeter, their surfaces carved with patterns that seem to shift in the moving light. These carvings speak of hands that worked with patience, creating beauty that would outlast their own brief time. You move slowly across the courtyard, feeling no urgency. Time moves differently here, stretched thin and comfortable. The air tastes of stone dust and night-blooming flowers whose names have been forgotten. Your breathing deepens, matching the rhythm of this ancient place. In one corner, a fountain sits silent, its basin filled with rainwater that reflects the sky above. You approach and see your own face looking back, wavering slightly in the dark water. The reflection seems to belong to someone who has always walked through places like this, someone who understands the language of empty spaces and patient stone. The walls around you rise higher than you can see in the darkness, but you sense their presence, steady and protective. They have sheltered this courtyard through storms and seasons, through the slow progression of years that brought change to the world beyond while leaving this place untouched. You continue walking, your path meandering without destination. Each step takes you deeper into the quiet. The moonlight follows you, casting your shadow long and soft across the ancient stones. The shadow moves with you like a companion who has learned the art of silence. Here and there, alcoves interrupt the smooth flow of the walls. Some hold empty niches where statues once stood. Others contain stone benches worn smooth by countless sittings. You pause at one of these benches, running your hand along its surface. The stone feels alive beneath your palm, warmed by memory rather than heat. You sit for a moment, letting the courtyard settle around you. From somewhere beyond the walls comes the distant sound of wind moving through trees. It is a sound that connects this place to the larger world, reminding you that even in isolation, nothing exists entirely alone. Yet the sound is so faint it might be your imagination, a whisper of connection that comes and goes like breath. The bench supports you as you rest, and you realize how perfectly it is positioned to catch the moonlight. Someone long ago chose this spot with care, understanding how shadow and light would dance together in this space. You wonder briefly about that person, but the thought passes gently, like a leaf carried by a slow current. Standing again, you continue your exploration of this first courtyard. Your movements have grown even slower, more deliberate. Each step is a conversation with the stones beneath your feet. Each breath brings you deeper into the rhythm of this sleeping palace. Along one wall, you discover a series of arched openings, each one leading to passages that disappear into darkness. The arches frame the blackness beyond, creating doorways to mystery. You are not ready to explore these passages yet, content instead to trace the perimeter of this first space, learning its contours and moods. The courtyard seems larger now than when you first entered, as if it has expanded to match your growing comfort within its boundaries. Or perhaps your perception has changed, slowing down enough to notice details that hurried eyes would miss. The joints between stones, worn smooth by weather and time. The way certain spots collect shadow while others hold light a moment longer. You find yourself moving in a spiral, gradually working your way toward the center of the courtyard. This movement feels natural, unhurried, like water finding its way downhill. At the center, you discover a circular pattern in the stonework, a mandala of fitted pieces that creates a sense of completion, of arrival. Standing in this center, you turn slowly, taking in the courtyard from this new perspective. The walls seem to breathe outward and inward, expanding and contracting with a rhythm too slow to perceive but somehow felt. The moonlight has shifted slightly, painting new patterns of silver and black across the ancient surfaces. You close your eyes and listen to the silence. It is not empty but full, containing the echoes of all the footsteps that have crossed these stones, all the conversations that have filled this space, all the dreams that have been dreamed beneath these stars. The silence holds everything and releases nothing, preserving the essence of all that has been. When you open your eyes, the courtyard seems unchanged, yet something has shifted. You have become more present, more attuned to the subtle communications of stone and shadow, moonlight and memory. Your breathing has synchronized with the deeper rhythms of this place, and you feel yourself becoming part of its ancient patience. You begin to move again, but now your movement is part of a larger dance, a slow choreography that includes the shifting light, the breathing walls, the watchful stones beneath your feet. You are no longer simply walking through a courtyard. You are participating in the ongoing life of this place, adding your presence to its accumulating story. The moon continues its journey across the sky, and the patterns of light and shadow continue their slow transformation. You walk with them, within them, your footsteps joining the eternal conversation between night and stone, between memory and presence, between the seeker and the sought. As you move toward the far end of the courtyard, where another set of arches waits to lead you deeper into the palace, you carry with you the peace of this first space. The courtyard has welcomed you, accepted you, and prepared you for whatever deeper mysteries await in the passages ahead. Your journey has begun, but it feels like a continuation rather than a start, as if you have always been walking through places like this, always been part of this ancient dialogue between human presence and patient stone. The palace sleeps around you, but it dreams of visitors like you, those who come not to disturb, but to participate in its quiet magnificence. Chapter 2. Corridors of Stone, Echoes of Time. You pass beneath the arches at the far end of the courtyard, and the open sky above gradually gives way to a ceiling of ancient stone. The transition is gentle, almost imperceptible, as if the palace itself is drawing you deeper into its embrace with the softest of touches. Your footsteps, which rang clear against the courtyard stones, now take on a different quality, becoming softer, more muffled, yet somehow more present in this enclosed space. The corridor stretches before you, long and graceful, lined with columns that rise from the floor like silent sentinels. These pillars are weathered smooth by countless years, their surfaces worn to a gentle curve that speaks of time's patient artistry. In the dim light filtering through high, narrow windows, you can see the faint traces of what might once have been carvings, now softened to mere suggestions of pattern and form. Your hand traces along the wall as you walk, feeling the cool smoothness of stone that has known the touch of many hands before yours. The surface is neither rough nor completely smooth, but something in between, a texture that speaks of age and weather, and the slow transformation that comes to all things. The stones fit together with the precision of master builders, yet the gaps between them are soft with moss that grows in the perpetual dampness of these shaded halls. The sound of your footsteps creates a rhythm that seems to blend with the very breathing of the palace. Step, pause, step, pause. Each footfall sends a gentle echo down the length of the corridor, a whisper that travels far ahead of you before fading into the deeper recesses of the building. The echo returns to you transformed, softer, carrying with it hints of other sounds, other movements that might be nothing more than the settling of ancient stones or the flutter of something unseen in the shadows above. Light filters down from somewhere high above, creating pools of gentle illumination along your path. These patches of light seem to move as you move, shifting subtly as clouds pass over the moon outside, or as your own presence changes the play of shadows in the corridor. In these brief moments of brighter light, you catch glimpses of details that had been hidden in the dimness. The grain of the stone, a small growth of moss in a corner, the way the columns seem to twist ever so slightly as they rise toward the ceiling. The air here is different from the courtyard. It carries the scent of stone and age, but also something else, something that speaks of spaces that have known human presence, but have been left to their own quiet existence. There is no staleness here, no sense of decay, but rather a feeling of patient waiting, as if the corridor has been holding its breath for someone exactly like you to walk its length and appreciate its enduring beauty. As you continue deeper into the palace, the corridor begins to curve gently to the right. The curve is so gradual that you hardly notice it at first, but slowly you become aware that you can no longer see the courtyard behind you, that the path ahead disappears into a soft darkness that seems welcoming rather than forbidding. The columns continue their steady march alongside you, each one slightly different from its neighbors, each one bearing the unique marks of its creation, and the centuries that have passed since then. Your breathing has slowed to match the pace of your walking, and you find yourself moving with a rhythm that feels as old as the palace itself. There is no hurry here, no need to rush toward any destination. The journey itself has become the purpose, the simple act of placing one foot in front of the other along this ancient path. The palace seems to approve of your unhurried pace, settling around you with small sounds of contentment, tiny shifts and sighs that speak of stone relaxing into the night. The ceiling above you is lost in shadow, but you sense its presence, arched and graceful, supported by the columns that line your way. Occasionally, a faint current of air touches your face, carrying scents from other parts of the palace, hints of gardens and water, of rooms where tapestries might once have hung, and where fires might once have warmed the stones. These scents are so faint they might be imagination, but they add to the sense that you are walking through a place that was once fully alive with human activity and is now content in its peaceful solitude. The floor beneath your feet is worn smooth by the passage of many feet over many years. In some places, you can feel the slight depressions where countless individuals have walked this same path, following the natural line of the corridor as it curves through the heart of the palace. Your own feet seem to find these worn places naturally, as if they remember this path from some distant time, as if you have always been meant to walk here in the quiet hours when the palace dreams. From somewhere far ahead comes the faintest sound of water, so soft it might be the whisper of wind through stone, but constant enough to suggest a fountain or a stream that continues its ancient song, even in the depths of night. The sound draws you forward, not with urgency, but with the gentle pull of curiosity satisfied slowly, one step at a time. There is time enough for everything here, time to listen to each echo, time to feel each texture beneath your hand, time to breathe the patient air of centuries. The columns beside you seem to pulse gently with their own life, the stone holding warmth from the day and releasing it slowly into the cool night air. You pause beside one of them, placing your palm flat against its surface, feeling the subtle exchange of warmth between your skin and the ancient stone. For a moment, you imagine you can feel the slow, deep heartbeat of the palace itself, the rhythm that has kept it whole through all the years of its existence. As you resume walking, your footsteps seem to join this deeper rhythm, becoming part of the palace's ongoing conversation with time. The echo of each step travels ahead of you and behind you, connecting you to every part of the corridor, making you aware that you are not separate from this place but have become, for this night, part of its living fabric. The palace has accepted you into its quiet community, and you move through its halls not as a visitor but as a temporary resident of its enduring peace. Chapter 3. The Inner Garden, where ancient waters still whisper. The sound of water grows clearer as you move deeper into the palace, and soon the corridor begins to widen, the walls drawing back to reveal spaces that breathe with a different kind of openness. You sense that you are approaching something special, something that was once the heart of daily life in this ancient place. The air itself feels different here, carrying hints of moisture and the faint, sweet scent of growing things that have found their own way to flourish in the absence of human care. Your footsteps echo differently now, the sound expanding into a larger space that receives them with the gentle acoustics of a room designed for gathering, for quiet conversation, for the simple pleasure of being together in beauty. As you move forward, patches of moonlight begin to filter down from above, and you realize you are entering a courtyard, an inner garden where the palace once opened itself to the sky. The moonlight reveals the silhouettes of plants that have grown wild and free, their branches reaching across pathways that were once carefully maintained, their roots finding purchase in the cracks between ancient stones. Vines have claimed the walls here, creating soft curtains of leaves that move gently in the night breeze, whispering secrets to each other in a language older than words. You step onto what was once a paved walkway, feeling beneath your feet the smooth stones that countless others have walked before you. The path curves gently around raised beds where flowers once bloomed in careful arrangements, where herbs grew for the kitchen, where perhaps a small tree provided shade during the warm afternoons of long-ago summers. Now these spaces have become wild gardens, places where nature has written her own poetry across the canvas that human hands once tended. The sound of water draws you deeper into the garden, and there, at its center, you discover the source. A fountain stands in a circular space, its carved stone basin still intact after all these years. Water trickles from its center, not with the robust flow it once knew, but with a steady, patient persistence that speaks of underground springs that continue their ancient work regardless of who might be here to witness their gift. You approach the fountain slowly, drawn by the gentle music of water falling into water, a sound that seems to carry within it all the conversations that once took place around this central gathering point. The basin is wide enough that several people could have sat along its rim, trailing their fingers in the cool water while they talked of the day's events, or simply sat in comfortable silence, listening to the water's endless song. Moonlight catches the surface of the water, creating tiny stars that dance and shimmer with each drop that falls from the fountain's heart. You lean closer, watching the ripples spread outward in perfect circles that break apart and reform, each one a small meditation on the way life moves in cycles, the way moments of disturbance settle back into peace. The plants around the fountain have grown lush with the constant moisture, their leaves darker and more abundant than those in the drier parts of the garden. Ferns have sprouted between the stones of the walkway, their delicate fronds unfurling like gentle hands. Small flowering vines climb the fountain's base, their blooms pale in the moonlight but sweet with fragrance that mingles with the humid air. You settle onto the rim of the fountain, feeling the cool stone beneath you and the gentle mist from the water touching your skin. Here, in this place where water and stone and growing things have found their own balance, you feel the deep contentment that comes from witnessing something that continues without need for approval or attention, something that simply is, day after day, night after night. The garden surrounds you with its quiet life, and you become aware of the small sounds that fill the spaces between the fountain's gentle splashing. Leaves rustle against each other with the softest whisper. Somewhere in the darkness, a small creature moves through the undergrowth, going about its nocturnal business with the confidence of one who has made this abandoned place into a home. You trail your fingers in the fountain's water, feeling its coolness against your skin, and for a moment you imagine all the hands that have touched this water before yours, all the faces that have looked into its depths, all the quiet moments of reflection that have taken place in this very spot. The water holds no memory of them, yet somehow their presence seems to linger here, not as ghosts or shadows, but as a gentle warmth that speaks of human connection to this place of peace. The night air moves through the garden with the softest breath, stirring the leaves and carrying with it the mingled sense of water and earth and growing things. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with this mixture of life and moisture, feeling it settle into your chest like a cool drink after a long walk. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of the water's fall, each breath a small tide that ebbs and flows with perfect naturalness. Above you, the sky opens like a window framed by the garden walls, revealing stars that seem closer here, more intimate, as if they too have been drawn into the gentle embrace of this protected space. The moon hangs like a lantern, casting its light down into the garden, illuminating the fountain and the wild plants with a soft radiance that makes everything seem touched by dreams. You remain by the fountain's edge, watching the waters dance, listening to its patient song, feeling the peace that comes from being in a place where time moves slowly, and nothing demands your attention except this moment, this breath, this gentle sound of water finding its way back to itself. The garden holds you in its quiet embrace, and you realize that you have found one of the palace's most treasured secrets, a place where serenity has grown as surely as the vines that climb these ancient walls. Chapter 4. The Throne Chamber Where Silence Reigns. The garden's peace follows you as you leave its gentle embrace, moving through another doorway that leads deeper into the palace's heart. Your footsteps carry you along corridors that seem to breathe with the memory of countless journeys, each stone worn smooth by the passage of time and the soft tread of those who walked here long ago. The air grows cooler as you walk, carrying with it a different quality of stillness, one that speaks of larger spaces and higher ceilings, of rooms built to hold more than whispered conversations and quiet contemplation. The darkness here feels deeper, more profound, as if you are approaching a place where silence itself has learned to gather and rest. You pause at the threshold of a great doorway, its frame carved with patterns that your fingers trace lightly as you pass through. The stone is cold beneath your touch, smooth as river rocks, worn by centuries of similar gestures from hands that sought the same quiet comfort you find in its familiar texture. Beyond the doorway, space opens around you like a deep breath. The chamber you enter stretches upward and outward, its dimensions only gradually revealing themselves as your eyes adjust to the softer darkness. This is the throne room, though no ceremonial grandeur remains to announce its purpose. Only the proportions of the space itself speak of its former significance, the way the ceiling soars above you and the walls curve away into shadows that hold their secrets close. At the far end of the chamber, you can make out the suggestion of steps, broad and shallow, leading to a raised platform where something once stood. The throne itself has long since crumbled or been removed, leaving only the impression of its presence, a space shaped by absence rather than substance. The platform stands empty now, patient as an altar that no longer remembers its prayers. You move forward slowly, your footsteps echoing softly in the vast space, each sound seeming to travel upward and outward before being absorbed by the ancient walls. The floor beneath your feet is made of great stone slabs, fitted together so perfectly that the seams are barely perceptible, creating a surface that feels solid and eternal beneath your careful steps. Above you, the ceiling disappears into darkness that seems to stretch infinitely upward. You sense, rather than see, the great height of this space, feeling it in the way your breathing seems to expand, in the way even the smallest sounds take on a cathedral-like quality that speaks of vast emptiness waiting to be filled. As you walk deeper into the chamber, you notice how the walls are punctuated by tall windows, their openings dark rectangles that frame the night beyond. Through these windows, starlight enters in thin streams, creating pools of the faintest illumination on the floor, each beam a silver thread connecting the earthbound chamber to the infinite sky above. The starlight reveals details that the deeper darkness had hidden. Along the walls, you can see the remnants of tapestry fixtures, metal rings and brackets that once held great hangings, now empty and waiting. The walls themselves show the faint traces of painted designs, patterns that have faded until they are more suggestion than image, ghosts of colors that once brought warmth and life to this solemn space. You continue your slow progress toward the platform at the chamber's far end, feeling no urgency, no need to hurry through this exploration. The throne room holds you in its vast embrace, offering the peculiar peace that comes from being small within something grand, from feeling yourself held within a space that was built to contain greatness, but now holds only quietude. The silence here is different from the garden's gentle hush or the corridor's patient waiting. This silence feels ancient, layered with the memory of voices that once filled this space with ceremony and proclamation. Yet now it rests in perfect stillness, having learned over the long years that silence too can be a form of majesty, that emptiness can hold its own kind of power. As you near the platform steps, you notice how the starlight from the high windows creates patterns on the floor, geometric shapes that shift subtly as the earth turns and the stars move in their eternal dance. These patterns of light and shadow seem almost intentional, as if the chamber itself has learned to collaborate with the night sky in creating beauty that needs no witness except the darkness itself. You place your foot on the first step, feeling the worn stone beneath you. The steps are wide and shallow, built for ceremonial processions that moved with dignity rather than haste. As you climb slowly, one step at a time, you feel yourself rising not just in height but in some intangible way, as if the platform offers a different perspective not just on the chamber, but on the nature of presence itself. From this elevated position, the chamber reveals itself more fully. You can see how the space was designed to create perfect acoustics, how every curve and angle was calculated to carry sound from this central point to every corner of the room. Yet now it carries only silence, using its ancient skill to amplify the profound quiet that has settled here like dust on unused furniture. The platform beneath your feet is smooth and level, a perfect circle of stone that feels somehow sacred despite its emptiness. You walk to its center, feeling the space arrange itself around you, the chamber's geometry making you aware of your position at its heart. Here, where authority once proclaimed itself to assembled crowds, you find yourself alone with the vast architecture of solitude. Standing at the chamber's center, you become aware of your own breathing in a new way. Each breath seems to travel outward, touching the walls and ceiling before returning to you changed, carrying with it the essence of this ancient space. You breathe in stone and starlight, time and patience, the accumulated stillness of centuries that have learned to rest without restlessness. Above you, the darkness seems to pulse gently with starlight that filters down from windows set so high they are barely visible. This light reaches you as the faintest blessing, a reminder that even in the deepest interior spaces, the night sky maintains its gentle presence, sending down its silver benediction to touch the places where silence and solitude meet. You turn slowly on the platform, seeing the chamber from each direction, understanding how it was built to impress, but finding in its present emptiness something far more profound than grandeur. The throne room has learned to be beautiful in abandonment, to find its purpose in purposelessness, to discover in its emptiness a fullness that no ceremony could have provided. The air moves around you with the slightest circulation, stirred by temperature differences between the stone floor and the high ceiling, creating the gentlest of breezes that touches your face like a whispered blessing. This movement of air seems to carry with it not just the coolness of stone, but something harder to name, a quality that speaks of patience learned through long solitude, of dignity that needs no audience to sustain itself. You remain standing in the center of ancient power, feeling yourself held by the chamber's vast embrace, understanding without words that you have found another of the palace's essential truths. Here, where command once echoed from stone walls, only peace remains, deep and abiding as the stones themselves, patient as starlight that travels unimaginable distances to illuminate empty spaces with the gentle touch of eternal light. Chapter 5. Faded murals, ancient corridors. You move away from the throne room's center with the same quiet reverence that has carried you through these ancient halls, your footsteps creating the softest echo against stone that has learned to hold sound gently, releasing it in whispered fragments that fade into the waiting darkness. The great chamber releases you gradually, its presence lingering at your back as you approach one of the several archways that lead deeper into the palace's quiet heart. The archway you choose stands before you like an invitation carved in stone, its edges worn smooth by countless centuries, the decorative elements that once adorned its frame now softened into suggestions of their former glory. You pass beneath its gentle curve, feeling the slight change in temperature as you enter a corridor that stretches ahead into shadow, lit only by the same mysterious luminescence that seems to emanate from the very stones themselves. This passageway is different from those you have walked before, wider and more formal, its walls rising higher into darkness that your eyes cannot penetrate. As you move forward with the same unhurried pace that has become natural to you in this place, details begin to emerge from the gloom like memories returning to consciousness. The walls are not bare stone, as you first thought, but covered with something far more wondrous, something that makes you pause and breathe in the cool, still air with deeper appreciation. Murals cover these walls from floor to the height where shadow claims them, paintings that speak of an artistry so refined, so patient in its execution, that even in their current state of gentle decay, they retain the power to transport you into their ancient world. The colors that remain are muted now, softened by time into shades that seem to belong more to dream than to waking life. Ochres and umbers blend into each other like watercolors left in rain, while traces of what might once have been gold catch the dim light with the faintest glimmer. You approach the nearest section of painted wall, your movement so slow and quiet that even the air seems undisturbed by your presence. The mural depicts figures in flowing robes, their faces turned toward something beyond the frame of the painting, their expressions serene with a kind of peaceful attention that makes you wonder what they might have been watching. The artist's hand, so many centuries past, captured something essential in the tilt of these painted heads, the gentle curve of their shoulders, the way their garments seem to move with a breeze that exists only in pigment and imagination. The figures are neither entirely human nor divine, but something between, something that speaks of a civilization that understood gradations of being that your modern world has perhaps forgotten. Their eyes, where they remain visible beneath the gentle erosion of time, hold depths that seem to shift as you look at them, creating the illusion that they are aware of your presence, that they welcome you with the same quiet acceptance that pervades this entire place. You move along the wall, following the mural as it unfolds its story in panels that flow into each other without clear boundaries. The narrative, if it is a narrative, told in the language of symbol and suggestion rather than literal representation. Here, a group of figures gathers around what might be a garden or a pool, their postures suggesting conversation of the deepest kind, the sort of dialogue that happens not with words but with presence, with the shared contemplation of mysteries that have no answers but infinite depth. The painted garden itself draws your attention, its details rendered with such loving care that you can almost smell the fragrance of flowers that exist now only in mineral and binding medium. Vines curve across painted stone, their leaves still showing traces of green so subtle it might be imagination, while what were once bright blossoms have faded to ghosts of color that somehow seem more beautiful than any flower in full bloom. This garden speaks of paradise not as a place of perfection but as a state of being, a way of existing in harmony with time and change and the gentle dissolution that claims all things. You continue your slow procession along the corridor, the mural continuing its ancient story with panels that shift and change like movements in a vast, silent symphony. Warriors appear, but they carry no weapons, their strength evident not in armor or blade but in the calm certainty of their bearing, the way they stand as if rooted to the earth yet reaching always toward something higher. Their battles, you sense, were fought in realms that have nothing to do with conquest, their victories measured by some standard that your world has lost the ability to comprehend. The corridor curves gently to the right, and as you follow its path, the character of the murals shifts again, becoming more abstract, more concerned with pattern and flow than with recognizable forms. Spirals and waves interweave across the stone surface, creating rhythms that seem to pulse with their own internal logic, designs that speak to something deeper than conscious understanding. These patterns draw your eye into their movement, creating the sensation that you are not just observing art, but participating in some ancient meditation on the nature of existence itself. You find yourself walking more slowly still, your attention divided between the path ahead and the painted walls that surround you, each section revealing new details as your eyes adjust to the subtle variations in light and shadow. A face emerges from what you thought was purely decorative design, then dissolves back into pattern as you shift your perspective. Landscapes appear and fade, architectural elements that might represent this very palace transform into clouds or water or the suggestion of distant mountains. The air in this corridor carries a different quality from the spaces you have left behind, cooler perhaps, with a hint of something that might once have been incense, though so faded now that it exists more as memory than scent. Your breathing has become even slower and deeper, matching the rhythm of your steps, creating a meditation of movement that seems perfectly suited to this place, where time has learned to flow like honey, thick and golden and infinitely patient. As you progress deeper into the corridor, the murals begin to include elements that speak of daily life in this ancient place, scenes of such gentle domesticity that they make you smile without quite knowing why. Figures tend gardens with the same reverence they might show to temples, their faces peaceful with the concentration of those who understand that all work is sacred when performed with proper attention. Children play games that seem to involve more joy than competition, their painted laughter almost audible in the quiet air. The technique of these paintings speaks of artists who understood their craft not as decoration but as prayer, each brushstroke placed with the careful attention of those who knew they were creating something meant to endure, to speak across centuries to viewers they would never meet, but somehow loved in advance. The very walls seem to hold this intention, this gift of beauty offered to unknown futures, and you find yourself filled with a gratitude so deep and wordless that it feels like coming home to a place you never knew you had lost. Chapter 6. The Ancient Library, Knowledge at Rest. The corridor begins to widen almost imperceptibly, the walls gradually expanding as if the architecture itself is taking a deeper breath, preparing for something different, something reverent. You notice this change not through sudden transition, but through the subtle way your footsteps begin to echo with a slightly different quality, a softer resonance that speaks of larger spaces ahead. The painted figures on the walls seem to be moving in the same direction you are, their gentle procession leading toward whatever sanctuary awaits at the corridor's end. The scent in the air changes too, so gradually that you might not notice it at first, a slow shift from the faded incense and stone dust to something warmer, more complex. It carries hints of old wood and something indefinable yet familiar, a smell that makes you think of quiet afternoons and deep concentration of wisdom accumulated over countless years. The fragrance grows stronger with each step, drawing you forward with the promise of discovery that feels more like remembering than learning something new. As you round a gentle curve in the corridor, the space opens before you into a vast chamber that takes your breath away not through grandeur, but through profound peace. This is a library, though unlike any you have ever seen, its shelves carved directly from the living rock of the palace walls, rising in gentle tiers toward a ceiling lost in comfortable shadows. The books that line these stone shelves are bound in leather that has aged to the color of autumn leaves, their spines bearing symbols and scripts that seem familiar even though you cannot read them, as if they speak to some deeper part of your understanding. Soft light filters down from sources you cannot quite identify, perhaps cleverly placed mirrors that channel the distant stars, or crystals embedded in the stone that hold and release the memory of sunlight. This illumination bathes everything in a golden glow that makes the leather bindings seem to warm under your gaze, as if the books themselves are alive and dreaming, holding within their pages not just words but the very breath of those who wrote them centuries ago. You move deeper into this sanctuary of knowledge, your feet making no sound on the smooth stone floor. The air here is perfectly still, not the stillness of abandonment, but the deeper quiet of a place where thoughts have settled into permanent peace. Somewhere in the distance, so faint you might be imagining it, there is the sound of pages turning, though whether this is memory or reality matters less than the comfort it brings, the suggestion that knowledge continues its eternal dance, even in solitude. The shelves stretch away in all directions, creating intimate alcoves and reading spaces that seem designed not just for study but for contemplation. Stone benches sit at intervals, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of scholars who came here seeking not just information but understanding. Some of these seats still hold the impression of bodies long gone, subtle depressions in the stone that speak of patient hours spent in communion with books and thoughts. You pause beside one of these alcoves, drawn by something indefinable in its arrangement. The books here seem to have been left precisely as their last reader arranged them, some open as if waiting for eyes to return to half-finished passages, others closed but marked with thin ribbons that catch the gentle light like captured whispers. A few volumes lie stacked beside the stone bench, creating the impression that their reader has simply stepped away for a moment and will return shortly to continue some important research. The silence here is different from the quiet you have encountered in other parts of the palace. It feels inhabited, filled with the accumulated concentration of countless minds that have worked within these walls, their thoughts somehow remaining as a palpable presence that makes the air itself seem intelligent. This is not the silence of emptiness, but of fullness, of knowledge so complete that it no longer needs to speak aloud to make itself known. As you walk among the shelves, you begin to notice that the books are organized not by subject or author, but by some deeper principle that seems to reflect the natural order of understanding itself. Topics flow into one another like water finding its level, philosophy blending into poetry, history merging with mythology, science transforming seamlessly into art. The arrangement feels organic, as if the books have found their own proper places through some form of intellectual gravity that draws related ideas together across the boundaries of conventional categories. Some volumes are larger than others, their thick spines suggesting comprehensive treatments of vast subjects, while others are slender and delicate, perhaps containing single poems or brief meditations that required no more space than their perfect brevity demanded. A few books appear to be handwritten, their covers bearing no titles but somehow radiating the particular warmth that comes from works created not for publication, but for the pure joy of expressing thoughts that could find no other form. The deeper you move into the library, the more you become aware of its careful design, the way the shelves create natural pathways that guide your movements without constraining them, leading you on a journey through the accumulated wisdom of this ancient civilization. The architecture seems to understand that knowledge is not meant to be hoarded but shared, even across the vast distances of time, and every element of the space serves this generous purpose. In one particularly quiet corner, you discover a small writing desk carved from the same stone as the shelves, its surface bearing the subtle stains and scratches that speak of long use. An inkwell sits in a shallow depression cut specifically to hold it, and beside this, a collection of writing implements arranged with the precision of tools that were deeply valued. The chair that accompanies this desk is worn smooth, its armrests polished by countless hours of contact with human hands that worked here in pursuit of understanding. The sight of this workspace fills you with a deep sense of connection to those unknown scholars who labored here, their individual identities lost to time but their dedication preserved in every carefully maintained detail. You can almost see them, bent over their work in the gentle light, transcribing thoughts or creating new knowledge to add to the vast collection surrounding them. Their presence seems to linger in the air like a blessing, a reminder that the pursuit of wisdom is one of humanity's most beautiful expressions. As you continue your slow exploration, you notice that some of the books show signs of frequent use, their pages soft with handling, their spines creased with the comfortable wear that comes from being loved rather than merely owned. Others appear almost pristine, perhaps containing knowledge so specialized or profound that only a few readers ever felt prepared to approach them. Both states seem equally valuable, equally honored in this place where all forms of understanding are welcomed and preserved. The very air in the library seems to carry the essence of the books themselves, as if centuries of slow breathing by paper and leather and ink have created an atmosphere that nourishes not just the body, but the mind and spirit as well. Each breath you take feels enriching, as if you are drawing in not just oxygen but the accumulated wisdom of ages, the distilled thoughts of countless minds that have found peace within these walls. Chapter 7. Night Winds on the Terrace. You find yourself drawn toward an arched doorway that frames a view of deeper darkness beyond, where cool night air whispers through stone. Your steps carry you through this threshold onto what reveals itself as a broad terrace, its ancient stones worn smooth by countless seasons of wind and rain. The transition from the library's enclosed wisdom to this open space feels like stepping from one kind of peace into another, from the intimate quietude of preserved knowledge into the vast serenity of the night itself. The terrace stretches before you, its surface paved with large weathered stones that seem to hold the memory of sunlight even in this darkness. Your footsteps echo softly against the stone, each sound absorbed quickly by the open air. Along the edges of this elevated platform, low stone balustrades mark the boundary between the palace and the world beyond, their surfaces carved with simple, elegant patterns that your fingers trace as you move slowly along their length. A gentle breeze moves across the terrace, carrying with it the scent of distant gardens and the faint perfume of night-blooming flowers. This wind seems to come from everywhere at once, touching your face with cool fingers that speak of vast spaces beyond the palace walls. The air tastes clean and ancient, as if it has traveled across centuries of undisturbed landscapes to reach this quiet place where you now stand. From this elevated position, you can sense rather than clearly see the expanse that surrounds the palace. The darkness reveals shapes and suggestions, the gentle roll of hills and the deeper shadows that might be valleys or ancient groves. Somewhere in that vastness, water moves softly, perhaps a stream or distant river whose voice reaches you as the faintest murmur, a sound so subtle it might be the whisper of wind through leaves or the breathing of the earth itself. Stars appear above you, scattered across the night sky like seeds of light sown by some patient hand. They seem closer here, more present, as if this terrace exists in a space between earth and heaven where the boundaries grow thin. Their light reflects faintly on the stone beneath your feet, creating patches of silver that shift and dance as clouds pass overhead. Each star seems to pulse with its own gentle rhythm, a cosmic heartbeat that matches the slow cadence of your breathing. The wind carries stories on its currents, fragments of songs that might have been sung in courtyards below, echoes of laughter from gatherings long past, the whisper of conversations held on nights just like this one by people whose names have been forgotten but whose presence somehow lingers. These sounds exist at the very edge of hearing, so soft they might be imagination, so gentle they seem to be woven into the fabric of the air itself. You move slowly across the terrace, your hands trailing along the stone balustrade, feeling the texture of carved patterns beneath your palms. Each carving tells its own small story, abstract designs that might represent flowing water, growing vines, or the movement of wind through grass. The stone feels warm despite the coolness of the night, as if it has spent the day absorbing sunlight and now releases that warmth gradually into the darkness. At one end of the terrace, you discover stone benches carved from single blocks of weathered granite, their surfaces polished smooth by countless hours of use. You settle onto one of these seats, feeling the solid support of ancient stone beneath you. From this position, you can gaze out into the night landscape, letting your eyes adjust gradually to the subtle variations in darkness that reveal the world beyond the palace walls. The silence here is different from the quiet of the library, less contained and more expansive. It seems to stretch outward in all directions, encompassing the sleeping hills and distant forests, the quiet streams and meadows where dew is beginning to form on grass and leaves. This silence feels alive with possibility, pregnant with all the dreams and thoughts that emerge in the deep hours of the night when the world turns inward and time moves more slowly. Your breathing synchronizes naturally with the gentle rhythm of the wind, each inhalation bringing you the essence of the night air, each exhalation releasing you further into the peace of this elevated sanctuary. The boundary between yourself and the surrounding darkness begins to soften, as if you are becoming part of the night itself, another element in the vast symphony of quietude that encompasses this ancient place. The stone beneath you seems to pulse with its own subtle energy, a vibration so low it exists below the threshold of conscious awareness, but somehow communicates directly with your bones and blood. This is the heartbeat of the palace itself, the accumulated rhythm of all the lives that have found shelter within these walls, all the thoughts that have been thought, all the dreams that have been dreamed beneath this sky. Time moves differently here on the terrace, measured not by the ticking of clocks but by the slow wheel of stars overhead, the gradual shift of shadows, the patient breathing of the wind. Minutes or hours might pass unnoticed, for in this place, the passage of time seems less important than the quality of each moment, the depth of peace that can be found in simply existing within this bubble of ancient tranquility. Chapter 8. Royal Chambers, Moonlit Peace. Your feet carry you gently away from the terrace, following the subtle pull of an inner compass that guides you deeper into the heart of this sleeping palace. The stone corridors welcome you back with their familiar embrace, the walls seeming to recognize your presence as you move through passages that grow quieter with each step, more intimate in their proportions. The air here holds different qualities than the open terrace, warmer and softer, carrying hints of ancient cedar and the faintest trace of lavender that might have been scattered across floors centuries ago. These scents linger like memories themselves, neither strong nor intrusive, simply present in the way that old places hold on to the essence of what they once contained. Your path curves gently to the left, then right, following corridors that seem to narrow almost imperceptibly, drawing you toward chambers that once pulsed with the private rhythms of royal life. The darkness here is not empty but full, pregnant with the accumulated peace of countless nights, countless dreams that have settled into these walls like sediment in still water. A doorway appears ahead, framed in smooth stone that catches what little light filters through from distant sources. The opening is neither grand nor imposing, but there is something about its proportions that speaks of importance, of spaces reserved for the most intimate moments of a civilization that valued rest as much as ceremony. You pass through this threshold into a chamber that breathes with its own quiet rhythm. The space expands around you, not vast but generous, with walls that curve slightly, creating a sense of enclosure that feels protective rather than confining. High above, the ceiling disappears into gentle shadows, while shafts of moonlight find their way through openings that might once have held precious stones or crystalline panels. The floor beneath your feet changes texture, becoming smoother, warmer somehow, as if generations of bare feet have polished these stones to a finish that speaks more of comfort than grandeur. Each step produces the softest whisper, a sound that is absorbed almost immediately by the chamber's embrace. In the center of this space, raised slightly from the floor, sits a platform that might once have supported the most important piece of furniture in this entire palace. The stone here is different, carved with subtle patterns that your fingers might trace if you knelt to touch them, flowing lines that suggest water, or wind, or the gentle movement of fabric in a breeze. Around this central space, niches in the walls hold shadows that seem deeper, more restful than ordinary darkness. These alcoves once contained the intimate possessions of people who ruled an empire but who also, at the end of each day, sought the same simple peace that draws you now through these quiet corridors. The moonlight that enters this chamber comes from several directions, creating pools of silver that shift slowly across the floor as the night progresses. These patches of illumination reveal details that emerge and fade, like thoughts drifting through a mind approaching sleep. Here, the remains of what might have been a small fountain, its basin carved to catch and hold water that would have murmured softly through the nights. There, the suggestion of built-in seating, stone benches worn smooth by use, positioned to catch the gentle breezes that would have flowed through the chamber. Your breathing adjusts naturally to the rhythm of this space, becoming deeper, slower, as if the chamber itself is teaching you its preferred pace of existence. The air moves differently here, circulating in gentle currents that seem designed to promote the deepest kind of rest, the most complete surrender to peace. Against one wall, barely visible in the shifting moonlight, the remains of what once might have been built-in wardrobes or storage spaces speak of lives lived with careful attention to the small comforts that make private spaces truly restful. These niches hold only shadows now, but their proportions suggest they once contained the soft fabrics, the personal treasures, the everyday items that transform any space from merely functional to deeply personal. The silence here is different from the silence of the corridors or the terrace. It is more complete, more nurturing, as if this chamber has learned over countless years how to cradle sound and transform it into something that supports rather than disturbs rest. When you move, even the softest footfall seems to be absorbed and transformed, becoming part of the chamber's own gentle breathing. You find yourself drawn to move slowly around the perimeter of this space, your path taking you past each niche, each pool of moonlight, each subtle variation in the stonework that speaks of craftsmen who understood that the spaces where people rest require the most careful attention to detail. Every curve, every surface, every proportion has been considered not for its visual impact, but for how it will affect the quality of sleep, the depth of dreams. In one corner, slightly elevated from the main floor, a smaller platform suggests where personal attendants might once have rested, close enough to respond if needed, but separate enough to maintain the intimate privacy of the main sleeping area. The thoughtfulness of this arrangement speaks of a civilization that understood the delicate balance between service and solitude, between caring for others and allowing them space for their own internal journeys. The walls themselves seem to pulse gently with their own warmth, as if the stone has absorbed centuries of body heat and breath and now radiates it back in the softest possible way. This is not the cold stone of dungeons or fortresses, but stone that has been loved, lived with, chosen specifically for its ability to create an environment where rest comes easily and dreams flow like water. Overhead, the ceiling reveals itself gradually as your eyes adjust further to the chamber's particular quality of darkness. The stone has been carved in flowing patterns that might represent clouds or waves or simply the abstract forms that appear behind closed eyelids in the moments before sleep. These patterns seem to shift and flow in the moonlight, creating a gentle visual rhythm that encourages the eyes to soften, to lose their focus, to prepare for the deeper vision that comes with dreams. Your movement around the chamber becomes slower still, each step a meditation on the simple act of existing in a space designed entirely for peace. The boundaries between yourself and the chamber begin to blur, as if you are being absorbed into its ancient understanding of rest, becoming part of its accumulated wisdom about the art of letting go. The moonlight continues its slow dance across the floor, and you realize that time here moves according to different rules, older rhythms that have nothing to do with urgency or destination. You are part of something larger now, a continuum of rest that stretches back through centuries, a tradition of peace that welcomes you as naturally as breath welcomes air. In this chamber, where royalty once sought the same simple surrender that draws you now, the distinction between ruler and subject, between ancient and present, dissolves into something more fundamental. Here, everyone who enters becomes simply another seeker of rest, another consciousness learning to release its grip on the day and trust in the deeper wisdom of sleep. The chamber holds you gently in its embrace of stone and shadow and silver light, offering not answers but something better, the profound peace that comes from no longer needing questions, the rest that rises naturally when the soul finds itself in a place designed entirely for its comfort and care. Chapter 9. The Underground Springs. Your feet carry you from the moonlit chamber through another doorway, and the air begins to change around you. There is warmth here, a gentle heat that rises from somewhere below, and with it comes the faint sound of water moving in hidden places. The stone corridor slopes downward now, leading you deeper into the ancient foundations of this sleeping palace. The walls here are different, carved from darker stone that holds warmth like a cupped hand holds light. Your fingertips brush against surfaces worn smooth by centuries of condensation, and you can feel the life that moves through these depths. the slow circulation of springs that have flowed here since before memory began. The sound of water grows clearer as you descend, not the rush of rivers or the crash of waves, but something softer, the gentle murmur of thermal springs welling up from the earth's deep places. Steam begins to drift past you in wisps, carrying minerals and heat and the promise of profound rest that only warm water can bring to weary bones. You emerge into a chamber carved entirely from living rock, where pools of water reflect the dim glow of oil lamps that burn without flame, fed by gases that seep naturally from the stone. The ceiling arches high above, disappearing into shadows that dance with rising steam, and everywhere the sound of water creates a lullaby older than civilization. The pools step down in terraces, each one slightly cooler than the last, and the water moves between them in streams so gentle they barely disturb the surface. Here in these underground baths, nobility once came to soak away the weight of governance, to let warm mineral water draw attention from muscles that carried the burden of empire. You sit at the edge of the nearest pool and let your feet slide into water that welcomes them like an old friend. The warmth travels up through your body, loosening joints and softening the places where the day has gathered in knots of worry or fatigue. The steam rises around you, carrying away thoughts that no longer serve any purpose. In this place, where water and stone have reached their own ancient agreement, where heat rises from the earth's core to meet human need, you understand something about the art of letting go. The springs ask nothing of you except presence, offering their mineral gifts to any consciousness willing to receive them with gratitude. The sound of water continues its eternal conversation with stone, and you close your eyes and listen to the language they share, older than words, more fundamental than thought. Here, in the deepest chamber of this forgotten palace, you find the source from which all rest flows. Chapter 10. Return to silence, the deepest rest. Time moves differently here in the heart of the palace, where the thermal springs have carved their own quiet kingdom from living rock. You remain at the water's edge, letting the warmth seep deeper into your bones, feeling how it dissolves the last traces of urgency from your muscles. The steam continues to rise around you, creating a gentle boundary between this sacred space and the world beyond. Slowly, you lift your feet from the mineral-rich water and feel how the stone floor receives them, still warm from centuries of geothermal embrace. Your footsteps echo softly as you move away from the springs, but the warmth travels with you, a gentle companion that will not easily fade. The corridors ahead seem to welcome you back into their familiar embrace, these pathways you have wandered in what feels like a dream within a dream. You find yourself walking toward the very center of the palace, drawn by an instinct older than thought. Here, where the architects of this forgotten civilization placed their most sacred chamber, the silence feels complete. The walls curve inward, creating a circular space that seems to breathe with its own quiet rhythm. Ancient carvings spiral upward toward a domed ceiling, their meanings lost to time, but their beauty eternal. In this place of perfect stillness, you understand that rest is not the absence of movement, but the presence of peace. The stone remembers all who have sought refuge here, and you become part of that memory, another soul who found solace in the embrace of this timeless sanctuary. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of the palace itself, and sleep approaches like a gentle tide, carrying you toward shores unknown.